Hello there. What is going on, everyone? We've got to talk about some big news regarding the Star Wars deck building game. There is an expansion coming. It is going to be Clone Wars based, and it looks like you're going to be able to get your first hands on look at this at Gen Con later this year. What's going on, everybody? We have some very cool leaked screenshots to also talk about. It's going to be an exciting time. If you guys are new here to the channel, I do invite you to stick around. We talk a lot about Star Wars and tabletop games, and especially where those two mix. And I love talking about these games. And I'm also doing a $25 Amazon gift card giveaway. We just announced the winner of the last one last week. New giveaway starts today. And again, all you have to do to enter to win is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. I will announce winners. This one runs for about 2 weeks. I'll announce winners at the end of my videos, so you don't have to, you don't have to worry about it for a little bit. But you might want to make sure when you do watch, you watch all the way to the end. All right, so we had some leaked images. Website went up for a little bit that should not have had this stuff. I guess this wasn't officially available yet, but it gave us some really cool looks. Now, the Star Wars deck building game has been out for a while. There have been some rumors that there is going to be an expansion for it soon, and this one looks to be most likely a standalone expansion, and that you will not, it appears, again, I'm waiting for the full press release, but it looks like right now you will not be required to have the Star Wars deck building game in order to play the Clone Wars Star Wars deck building game. Looks like this will be a fully contained game on its own, which I think is pretty good because I'll be honest with you, when I pre-ordered the original Star Wars deck building game, I got, which was Galactic Civil War, Luke versus Vader themed. I had sleeves that came with the pre-order that had Vader and Luke fighting each other. And how am I going to mix and match? I'm not going to be able to get those sleeves. It was like a special thing, So I'm like, hey. That's how I do. I walk in the gaming store. I'm like, hey. And they're like, get out of here. Not you again. All right, so we're going to have planets from the Clone Wars. We are going to have cards from the Clone Wars, and it looks pretty interesting. It looks like we're going to be having our own Separatist side. We're going to be having our own Republic side, and also we're going to be having our own neutral cards. Looks like Jar Jar Binks is probably going to be a neutral card in there. We're also going to be having ships of the Clone Wars and everything, vehicles, ships, the whole shebang. There's actually a lot to be seen here. So what do we know about this? Well, first off, the full playthrough here is definitely indicating that this is a full standalone game. You've got your own Force tracker that has Separatist and Republic on there, so you're not. It doesn't look like they're actually using components from the base game, which is pretty interesting to me because there's usually a deck building expansion is usually an expansion. This one, I'm actually curious how they can kind of consider it an expansion because, again, it looks like a fully standalone game. I'm curious how interactive or interoperable these are going to be with each other. It looks very interesting to me. But we can see some pretty interesting stuff. You got Wat Tambor here. We've got Obi-Wan Kenobi. We've got some other clones, B2 Super Battle Droids, Ahsoka Tano over on the other side there. We've got some BARC troopers. They have it kind of set up in a weird way because there's like a Jedi Starfighter that's facing one way, but then the BARC troopers are facing the Separatist player in the image. That might be why it's set up like, or maybe the website wasn't supposed to be up yet. Maybe the maybe the BARC troopers. Although maybe that's the discard pile. Well, like why are the BARC troopers oriented the wrong way? That could, something like that could be a thing that causes a graphic to have to be like, hey, that graphic has to come down. But you're definitely getting a full-fledged expansion of, well, a whole game of Clone Wars content. Droidicas, Providence. You've got mining guild ships up on there on the other side too. So very cool stuff. We're also getting a little bit about the game featured in a blurb that came out of the Gen Con website. This is where people were talking about this over the past couple of days because Gen Con events for 2024 already have this event kind of listed where on Thursday, August 1st, at 8 a.m. until 11 a.m., you can buy a ticket for the Star Wars, the deck building game, Clone Wars Learn to Play. And it says, short description is choose your side, strengthen your deck, and be the first to destroy your opponent's bases. Long description says, in this easy-to-learn game, you and your opponent each choose a side, playing as either the Republic or the Separatists. Strengthen the power of your starting decks and work to destroy each other's bases. This is saying nothing about the Empire and nothing about the Rebellion. And so it's that could be a good thing or a bad thing. Now, I think initially the bad thing here is that a lot of folks were really going to want a little bit more for to expand the existing game, because I really enjoy the Star Wars deck building game. It plays a lot like Star Realms. It basically is the Star Wars skin of Star Realms with less factions. And my hope was that if you add this to your game, then you've got 4 factions, and now you can actually build a deck. And maybe there'll be a way to do that. Maybe you can just take this whole deck and throw it into the other whole deck and just say, boom, you know what? Build any deck you want. I think maybe there might be a homebrew way to actually play that and make that work. I hope so. Because then you really have Star Wars, Star Realms. And that'd be really flippin' cool. But in reality, that's something that is definitely a no-go for mixing factions like that. At least it was for the last game. The idea of being able to have the Rebel player buy Imperial cards and so on and so forth was definitely not any kind of officially supported way to play. And I was really kind of hoping that an expansion, if it wasn't going to let us do that, would just give us a lot more options, because Rebels and Empire, when they're playing the Star Wars deck building game, while it is a lot of fun, it is more of a deck grower than a deck builder. You're not as often saying, oh man, I really want to go with vehicles, so I'm going to ignore all the non-vehicle cards that come out. No, if there's something for your faction, you kind of have to get it before somebody else blows it up. You don't really have that many choices, because when you're playing this game, you've got your space line of cards you're going to buy, and I've said this in my review of the game. While it is a good game, I really have things that annoy me about the game, in that you have almost no choice in how you build your deck in this game. You're going to start off with some cards that are way too expensive. You're going to have some cards that are for your opponent. And so you may only have one card you can buy. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you have 2 cards you can choose from to buy in the space line. Until it gets kind of late in the game, when you can afford to buy pretty much whatever you want. But usually by that point in the game is getting close to over. So, having the flexibility to actually customize your deck when the game is almost over doesn't really matter. And I was hoping that an expansion would kind of address that with extra cheap, low-cost cards and an expanded space line. Now, there is the option that this could adjust the rules a little bit and allow for some of those things, some of those community feedback suggestions to come into play. But it doesn't appear that the space line is going to really, change that much. I mean, we've kind of got this image, which looks pretty much the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Six cards, your neutral pile, and then the discard pile, right? So I don't think they've changed much about the core gameplay. I think if you got a solution to something that works, keep going with it. There is some talk that the Caleb Grace, the designer, had said something in Facebook that you would be able to kind of have some customizability if you own both games, and that you could potentially play as the Republic versus the Empire, and so on and so forth, or Rebellion versus Separatists, and that sort of thing. Now, I'm curious how customizable it is, because that's still good guys versus bad guys, and I wonder if it will be that you could do Republic versus Rebels. I wonder if you have 2 copies of the game, if you're going to follow the same thing. Could I do Empire versus Empire? Could I do a mirror match? That would truly be interesting, because then all the cards would be Empire or neutral. That might not be able to work. You may have to go, good versus evil. I'm not sure exactly. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really waiting to see the full press release to learn more about how this game is going to change the existing rules, as well as how well it integrates with the core game. And of course, I don't think there will be anything that will say you must have the other game or not, because again, this does not say expansion on the box, even though it's being billed as an expansion for purposes of like Gen Con announcements. And again, there's nothing wrong with calling it an expansion, even if it's a standalone game. Plenty of games have standalone expansions, and it basically tells you, hey, this can work with the game, and it can also work on its own. And that's exactly what it looks like we're getting here. So Caleb Grace and Frank Brooks working on bringing us the Clone Wars Star Wars deck building game. I'm excited about this one. I enjoy the Star Wars deck building game. I haven't played it recently, though. It's been a little while since I've played it, and I think it's time to play it again. I may have to get it to the table very soon. I think a board game night of multiple light, smaller games is definitely what the doctor ordered, and this is a great one for purposes like that. If you're looking to have a game night where you get a lot of games in like a 3-hour period, like I want to play 5 games in 3 hours, like this is a great game to include in that matchup, in that list. I don't think it's going to expand the player base though, and I would love it if it did. Like if there was a way to have like a 4-player version of Star Wars deck building game, like combining both games, like that would be really cool. And maybe you can do that. You know, I want to see how they've really expanded the base gameplay, or if this is just a reskin of the exact game with no new mechanics. I want to know, and I'm really excited to find out. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. Of course, we will keep you posted as more information comes out for the Clone Wars Star Wars deck building game. Let me know if you've played this one, and if not, what are some of your favorite Star Wars games? Down in the comments section. You can also keep the discussion going on our Discord. We got links in the video description below for the Discord and other social media and Patreon if you're interested in that. Speaking of Patreon, big thanks to my patrons. You guys are out of this world and help make this whole channel possible. I will talk to you later. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. So say we all. And always wash your socks.